Is up May 17th, 2025 on a Saturday. What is up, y'all? Welcome to Cozy Corner TV, ladies and gentlemen. I am your host, Kieran Smith. Call me Q, and we are on the corner. We are on the corner. What up, y'all? Saturday daily live stream, last live stream of the week. Okay, guys. So, what today looks like is pretty much a wrap up of the week, right? We went through a couple of things throughout the week. This was a crazy week for me, as I mentioned a couple of times, moving at my day job. So pretty hectic right now, but things will calm down soon. So been on pretty late this last week. But with that being said, still saw the Lord's grace and mercy, because I don't know if it was my Tuesday or my Wednesday live stream where by the time I ended the live stream, we had like 4K views for that live stream. So I was like, okay, that's a good thing, because the rest of the week I knew it was going to be choppy, and it was. But nonetheless, we got through it. We made it, y'all. Saturday, this is the last live stream of the week for Cozy Corner TV, because we live stream on this channel every single day except Sunday. So you guys will enjoy your Sunday without me, and we'll be back Monday. So let's go down the menu, guys, as per usual. I like to say, make sure you're grounded and regulated before you sit in this live stream with us. Why? Because news can be triggering. If you are not grounded and or regulated, please come back later and watch this. But if you are, welcome to the live stream. All right, guys. First up on the list, shout out to Reckless, man. If you guys don't watch Reckless, go check out his channel. Young guy does his thing, pretty conservative leaning, as I can see. I think he started out liberal, and then he started to lean conservative at some point. Not sure exactly when that point was. Reckless, let me know when that was. But love his channel. Young guy does his thing. He covered The View. Audience furious as Sonny Hostin defends Diddy, saying he doesn't deserve prison time. I like to watch anything by The View, usually on another channel. They usually like to hit me with certain strikes whenever I react to The View specifically. So they have their channels that I guess they don't come against or can't, and they have the ones that they don't like. So they don't particularly like when I react to certain things by them. I still do it, but I try to do it from someone else's platform, to kind of ease any kickback that I may get. Then we're going to switch gears, guys, and we're going to jump over to Bill O'Reilly. Shout out to Bill. Putin backs out of peace talks. Will Trump end birthright citizenship? Covered this earlier this week in a live stream. It was a newsathon, so I did not do too much reacting to it. But today, we will look at it a little bit deeper, make some commentary on it, switch gears, and we are going to jump over to Real Time with Bill Maher. Another Bill, second Bill. Shout out to Bill Maher. Two Bills, two different ends of the spectrum, two very opposite ends of the spectrum, which I enjoy both of these bills. So shout out to Bill Maher. Overtime with Bill Maher. Scott Jennings and Peter Hamby joined Bill Maher. And Scott Jennings, if you guys do not know who he is a news anchor on CNN. Scott Jennings is usually the guy that, I'm not going to lie, he gets beat up a lot on CNN. He does. Sometimes I'm like, poor Scott. Like, they come for him because he's conservative leaning. He's one of the only conservative leaning news anchors on the CNN platform. So we're going to take a look at that. Then we're going to switch gears. Shout out to Canada. I say it often. Canada is my second most watched country on this channel to the United States. And second, which puts Germany usually in third for me. Shout out to the Toronto Sun. Bachelor's burning questions. Bumpy ride so far for Carney government in week 1. We're gonna take a look at that. Haven't been reacting to much Canadian news since the election. Why is that? I'm not gonna lie, because I was being petty, because I was mad that Carney won. So I'm just gonna throw it out there. I was being petty. I was like, you know what? This would have been the equivalent if Kamala Harris would have won for me. Maybe if Joe Biden would have won a second term for me, and mainly because where the government was going. So I'm thinking to myself, obviously I would have woke up the next morning, but I would have been a little bit depressed. But because it's my country, still would have to wake up, go to work, be an active, participating, loyal citizen. But since Canada is not my country, I was petty. And I didn't react because I was like, I can't believe you guys let Mark Carney win. So we're going to take a look at Mark Carney's difficult, bumpy ride so far in week 1. That's not a shocker. Then we'll switch gears and we're going to go over to Capturing Christianity. Shout out to Cameron Bertuzzi asking an exorcist what he's seen. often on this channel, if not all the time, I let you guys know that I am a Christian. So when we end our live streams, I usually end with a clip from Cliff Buell. Shout out to Cliff Buell. If you guys get a chance, go check out his channel. He does YouTube shorts. But if I don't end with Cliff, I usually end with a Christian or a content creator that is somewhat focused on Christian content. So tonight we're going to end with Cameron, because last night we ended with Cameron and the topic was angels and demons. Pretty popular topic amongst people. Are they real? Are they not? How do we feel about them? You guys in the chat can let me know if you believe in angels and or demons. But that's how we're going to end the live stream. So, real quick, let me give a shout out to the chat real quick. Triple, what's up, Triple? How you doing? Shout out to you. Make sure you hit that like button for me, guys. Hey, you know what, Triple? Eventually, I'm going to need some moderators. I already asked like 1 or 2 people, but I've seen you show up a lot. So, I could appreciate the loyalty. And I think by now, Triple, you know, I don't like ignorant people in my chat. We can't ignore ignorant people because unfortunately they live amongst us. But with that being said, good moderators can keep me from giving them special attention. And if you've ever been in a live stream, Triple, when I've given someone special attention, it always gets fun, right? Because I'm very classy with my special attention. Usually people try to troll. The problem with that is that, like, I don't think YouTube is real life, but I am live, so you guys do interact with me live. I'm a huge troll in real life. My wife will tell you this. I do trolling for fun. So when people troll me, I'm like, oh, today we got time. And they usually don't know what they're walking into, you know? So I try to be gentle because they don't know what they're walking into, you know? But with that being said, I am looking for moderators, Triple, so probably later on this week at some point, I'll probably tell you to hit me up, give you an email, or tell you to give me your email, and I'll reach out to you because I'm really not on social media like that because of trolling. And as a Christian, I don't want Jesus to get mad at me for my trolling. You get the picture. All right, guys, so let's jump into the first clip. Shout out to Reckless, man. We're going to look at what the View said about Diddy's case. Apparently, Sonny Holston thinks Diddy doesn't deserve prison time. Yeah. Of course Sonny doesn't think that. Why would Sonny think that?
What is why back with another video. I seen the title going out. Make sure y'all like hit that subscribe button for me, please. Definitely glad to be back. I had to take a day break, you already know. But definitely had to check this out. So let's get right into it.
Yeah, thank you, Whoopi. I was in the courtroom yesterday, and as many of you know, this is a federal case. It's a racketeering case. It's a human trafficking case. He's accused of a lot of sex-related crimes, and I was a former sex crimes, human trafficking federal prosecutor, and so this is what I did for a living. And I will tell you that it
I'm not gonna lie, she said it so many times, bro.
Probably the most disturbing case I've ever heard in my career. And what happened yesterday was interesting because there were opening statements by both the government and the defense, and I think the defense gave probably one of the best opening statements I've heard. Mm-hmm. And the defense's theory of the case is that Sean Combs is violent. He is a complicated man. He's has committed domestic violence. But this is a case about jealousy and infidelity and a money grab. And it's not, and it's also a case about consensual threesomes. And so
What about the trafficking?
They said that there was no human trafficking. This is all consensual. And it was very interesting. It was a very good opening statement.
I feel like what they trying to do right now is just to justify, like they're trying to make him out to be like he's definitely like, I don't know, using more so excuses. Using more so excuses. That's what burns me up about this whole thing, because let me tell y'all something.
Can your dentures withstand the force of a golf swing?
YouTube.
We're putting
No,
newbies
don't want to
coming
hear about
into
dentures. Thank you.
And
Let's
this
go back, guys.
And it was very interesting. It was a very good opening statement.
I feel like what they trying to do right now is just to justify, like they're trying to make him out to be like he's definitely like, I don't know, using more so excuses. Using more so excuses. That's what burns me up about this whole thing, because let me tell y'all something. And this what burns me up about everything. And I know everybody is going to look at the simple fact of you really can't say that and don't try to do that reckless and this, that, and other. But I'm gonna be real with y'all. just because this is, obviously this is Diddy, it's something else. It's always the but. He's in trouble for this, and they're saying this, and they're saying that, and then Sonny goes, but it's no buts. Dude is sick. I mean, it's common sense, and it's all
I
out
will
there.
say, to give you some color in the courtroom, Sean Combs is not the person that we used to see out there. He looks very much like a defeated mogul. He's all gray because you can't have hair dye in federal detention. He looks like he's dressed like Mr. Rogers. He's got sort of like a gray sweater. He's walking feebly. That could be a defense tactic. And he has a lot of support in the courtroom. All of his children were there, except for one, because he had a child in 2022, but his 6 children were there. His mother was there. Misa Hilton was there, which is one of the mothers of his children. And so there was a lot of interaction, and he was very, very engaged in his case. He was writing down notes on orange stickies, passing it to attorneys.
That's what I'm saying. So like, why are they making this man out to be like he's just, they feel sorry for him or something? Because that's like the vibe that I'm getting from Sonny right now. It's the vibe that I'm getting from Sonny right now. Like she's saying all his family.
Let's see. Hold up, chat. Give me a minute. Oh, yeah. I see what happened. Hold up, chat. Let me go ahead and fix this audio real quick. He said they're always trying to defend him. Like, dude is sick. Yeah, Reckless. A lot of people do have that opinion. I'm not gonna lie. A lot of people do. I mean, what was funny though, in a live stream yesterday when I was covering, I think I was covering Sidebar with Jesse Weber, and another one. I gotta give my audio a minute, guys, but I think I was covering it on Sidebar with Jesse Weber, and there's another. I'm not sure if she's a lawyer. I know she's an onlooker of the case, Jerica Duncan. She's usually in the front of the courthouse, and they were kind of talking about Cassie's testimony and like kind of like how it played out, and it was interesting. I thought the interesting part was she said on the stand that the baby oil didn't have anything in it. Like Cassie actually said that, and I was like, oh wow, okay. I thought that was interesting because I was like, so where did we hear that they were using the baby oil to like sedate people and stuff? Because I'm not sure if they asked her, was there anything extra in there or there wasn't. I can go back to the live stream and find it, or the video that we used to react to, but yeah, she said if they asked something about, was the baby oil used to like debilitate or, sedate people, and she said that's not true, that there wasn't anything in the baby oil, and I was like, wow, okay. Wow. I mean, I guess, man, Puffy is freaky for real. Because it's like, I'm just thinking to myself, like, I guess if the baby oil had something in it, that would make sense, right? Because he's using it to sedate people so they could do things against their will. But if it doesn't have anything in it, and he had 1,000 bottles, he's just a freak at that point. That's really crazy, Diddy. That's a lot. And what's crazy? I hated baby oil growing up. Like, my mom would use it on me sometimes, and I would get so upset. Because it's mad oily. Like, it's mad greasy. And it's not like lotion or even like Vaseline to where if you just kind of keep rubbing it, it disappears. It's just all over the place, and I'm just, man, this just doesn't even sound right. Diddy and that damn baby oil. People will never look at baby oil again the same way because of Diddy, I swear. All right, guys, I'm gonna run this back just because we had that audio technical difficulty.
And it's also a case about consensual threesomes. And so
What about the trafficking?
they said that there was no human trafficking. This is all consensual. And it was very interesting. It was a very good opening statement.
I feel like what they trying to do right now is just to justify, like they're trying to make him out to be like he's definitely like, I don't know, using more so excuses. Using more so excuses. That's what burns me up about this whole thing, because let me tell y'all something. And this what burns me up about everything. And I know everybody is gonna look at the simple fact of you really can't say that and don't try to do that reckless and this, that, and other. But I'm gonna be real with y'all. Just because this is, obviously this is Diddy, it's something else. It's always the but, he's in trouble for this, and they're saying this, and they're saying that. And then Sonny goes, but. It's no buts. Dude is sick. I mean, it's common sense. And it's all
I
out
will
there.
say, to give you some color in the courtroom, Sean Combs is not the person that we used to see out there. He looks very much like a defeated mogul. He's all gray because you can't have hair dye in federal detention. He looks like he's dressed like Mr. Rogers. He's got sort of like a gray sweater. He's walking feebly. That could be a defense tactic. And he has a lot of support in the courtroom. All of his children were there, except for one, because he had a child in 2022, but his 6 children were there. His mother was there. Misa Hilton was there, which is one of the mothers of his children. And so there was a lot of interaction, and he was very, very engaged in his case. He was writing down notes on orange stickies, passing it to attorneys.
That's what I'm saying. So like, why are they making this man out to be like he's just, they feel sorry for him or something? Because that's like the vibe that I'm getting from Sonny right now.
Yeah,
that's the vibe that I'm getting from Sonny right now. Like, she's saying all his family members, his sons were there.
That makes sense for Sonny.
Bro, that don't matter.
Would not close their examination of witnesses until he said,
I noticed in a lot of domestic abuse cases, they sort of say, well, she stayed with him for 11 years.
I heard that part, Joy, and I felt like I thought in 2025 we should be back past the victim shaming, saying these were grown women who stayed. But anyone knows that when there's a victim involved, there's abuse, there's a psychology to that.
And I'm assuming that the Cassie is going to testify today. Her testimony begins today. I'm going to leave after the show to go see her testimony. That is classic survivor behavior. You stay in this type of violent relationship, and there, while the defense is arguing it was consensual, it is difficult to prove that it is non-consensual. But I think the government will try to do that.
And by the fact that she stayed all that time,
they have to have an expert
case.
will explain that dynamic.
I actually have the same takeaway in just reading the transcripts of Sonny. This is one of the most high-powered defense teams. If you know defense prosecutors, these are the best of the best. And they're doing a really good job acknowledging this is a deeply flawed person. He was into sexual things that might make you uncomfortable. They admitted openly he is a domestic abuser. But what I think the prosecution is going to be able to do today with Cassie Ventura's testimony is have her speak to how those acts were not consensual. And on the trafficking side of things, that she was denied her personal freedom. And we all saw that famous video of her trying to get out of the hotel, and he is...
Now that part of her being denied her personal freedom, if anybody's like, well, where does that come from? That's actually true, because she said in her testimony, so when did Reckless cover this? I think it was a day ago. Yeah, it was a day ago. She said in her testimony that there were times that she would try to leave early, and if the freak off wasn't over, that Diddy would tell her that she could not leave. Like and she would get in trouble if she left. Like she would get beat, meaning like he would either physically hit her. One time she said he punched her in the eye. And I believe that video that we saw when they were in the hallway, She says that it was because she was trying to leave a freak off early. That's why Diddy runs out in a towel. So she actually admitted that.
Kicking
Why,
Brad.
why is Whoopi looking like that? I mean, don't y'all just find it odd? Don't y'all find it, especially like with Whoopi, like she looks like just disgusted with what Alyssa is saying right now. Like Diddy is her son or something.
We all saw that famous video of her trying to get out of the hotel, and he is kicking her and abusing her.
I want to mention that too because they showed that video yesterday and they showed it over and over.
I'd like them to
and over
stop
again.
showing the video
Yes, it was
on
very-
television.
was very
This is all I'm
disturbing.
going to say about any of this. It's like
It's the reason why I have something pulled up. It's the reason why I got something pulled up right now. I got a picture pulled up, and I seen it. And people always tag me on stuff on X. If y'all can look me up on X. I think it's @LifeReckless. Y'all can my Instagram is I'm the Reckless. If y'all ever send anything, lifereckless@yahoo.com. Always get different things, and I had got this picture, and I found it very odd. And now that I'm watching this video, I find it even more odd how Whoopi is acting. She's saying I want them to stop playing the video. They need to play that video over and over and over. And y'all want me to tell you why? I feel like they need to play that video over and over and over because it shows how disgusting this man was, what he did. Obviously for the jury to see, for others to see, and for Whoopi to say it, I feel like that's a little bit odd to stop showing the video.
any of this. It's like we know.
And this woman's been through absolutely
Yeah,
hell.
it's like
It was
enough.
very, very disturbing. I will say, racketeering cases are really hard to prove.
That's what I wanted to ask you, Sunny. Do you
Yeah.
think they over?
All right. My bad, y'all. I was eating chips and I didn't want to choke. What Reckless is saying that he thinks it's odd that Whoopi Goldberg wants them to stop playing that video. The reason why it's not odd to me is because I understand what a trigger is. So if she's saying she wants them to stop playing the video, it's because the video is probably triggering her. So for those people who aren't really into mental health like that, like a trigger could be anything. It could be a smell, a sound, a visual, I don't know, a scene, like anything, something that passes you by. And what it does is that it triggers something in the past or even something in your subconscious that happened, but maybe you don't remember clearly. And it can make somebody angry. It can make them feel super anxious. It can make them feel trapped all of a sudden. Maybe they can't breathe. Maybe they have a panic attack. All of the above can literally happen. I know this because, and I have a very different stance and view on this now, but when George Floyd happened, they were playing that video all over the place. So, when Reckless is saying he doesn't think that they should stop playing it, well, they don't have to stop playing it because it's on YouTube. So as long as the internet exists, we'll always be able to go back and find it, right? In some way, shape, or form because it's been out there. So even if YouTube tried to block certain people that first put it out, there's already more people that have dubbed it, copied it, put it out again. We have the video, right? So with George Floyd, people did that. And they played this video over and over and over again. And now me, at this point, I had been in therapy. I had been in there for some time, but let's just say like when you're going through therapy, if you're actually committed to the process of understanding yourself and what well-being is, and you're sticking to it, it can be a process. So you can be in therapy about a year or two. And maybe just a lot of things that you and your therapist have went over haven't clicked yet. So I'm watching the George Floyd video and I'm watching it like over and over and over again. Like, I know it sounds weird, but this is just what I was doing. I probably would watch it like 4 times a day. I can't really explain why I kept going back to it, but I just did at this point. So I remember I had a session with my therapist coming up. And we're sitting there, and she's kind of just asking me like how my week has been, what I have been up to. And I was talking to her about George Floyd again. And I was asking her, had she watched the video because I was watching it. And then I explained to her that I watched it like probably 4 times a day and I was doing it like every day. And she just really suddenly was like, yeah, I'm gonna need you to not do that. And it didn't hit, it kind of hit me right away, but at the same time, it didn't hit me really hard. But I was taken back by the way she said it, because she kind of said it like, it's literally insane for you to do that. But she didn't use those words. But that's kind of how it landed on me. And for the first time in a while, I thought to myself that my behavior wasn't right. Before that, I could watch things like that all of the time. And it didn't matter if after it I was in a bad mood or I felt agitated or aggressive. I would just think, whatever, that's life. Like, I guess people just feel like that. I didn't even realize I was triggering myself. So when my therapist said, like, I'm going to need you to stop doing that, it kind of clicked to me. And then as the days went on, the months went on, years have passed. And even if her and I talk about it today, my stance on it is very different. I realized that when I was doing that, that was really bad behavior. It was traumatizing behavior. So when Whoopi Goldberg says, I really wish they would stop playing it on TV, it's probably a trigger for a lot of women, that have been in abusive relationships, probably even some men. It's just probably going to manifest differently on men behavioral wise. But that have been in situations like that, and they're like, damn, I don't want to keep seeing this. Or like, why do they keep playing it? Or why is the fact that Diddy and Cassie are even in court, and when the video first came out, it was plastered everywhere. That in itself, just, I know for my wife, just the fact that the trial's going on, that's been a trigger for her, So it's like, people don't really think about things like that, but that's just something to what Whoopi Goldberg was saying.
Were charged, what they could prove after hearing that opening statement.
Yeah, the case has just begun. The first 2 witnesses could have been defense witnesses. I don't think that they were helpful to a racketeering case. The government has to prove that Sean Combs had this, bad boy records and the liquor and all the branding, and he used that as a criminal enterprise to traffic women and commit sexual abuse. And it's a stretch. It's a really hard case to prove. But it's an 8-week trial, so maybe they will be able to do that.
Because a lot of people have made parallels to Harvey Weinstein, but I think a much more accurate parallel is Jeffrey Epstein, where he's being accused of it being this.
I'm actually glad that the photo that people take.
Parallel is Jeffrey Epstein, where he's being accused of it being this vast criminal network of abusing women. And I'd be curious from your perspective, are they kind of holding on to the paper trail and the money trail? Because I didn't hear that come up yesterday, and that's the core to that trafficking and criminal enterprise.
Yes, I think we will hear more information about the money. There was a witness yesterday that testified that he was paid for sex with Cassie while Sean Combs watched in the hotel room. He was paid anywhere between $700 and $4,000. The problem that I saw there is that the money came directly from Cassie.
Yeah, they have to link it to him.
They have to somehow link it to him. I suspect that, if they charge it this way, most federal prosecutors win 97% of their trials, and so there must be evidence to support these charges. But it's from what I can see at this point, it's going to be a difficult case to prove.
And by the way, it's so.
See, and that's the thing, though. This is the thing that I absolutely hate, y'all. I feel like if it wasn't Diddy, if it wasn't somebody that, and y'all know I hate throwing race in this, but I guarantee, bro, if it was somebody different, if it was somebody white, bro, I'm gonna be 100 with y'all. Sonny would be acting totally different. I don't care what nobody say. If it wasn't Diddy and it was somebody else, Sonny would act a different way. Because the vibe that I'm getting here from Sonny, from Joy, and especially from Whoopi, is that it's like they're mad at the fact that Diddy is going through this. They're mad at the fact of what he did, and just like Whoopi said, stop showing the video and stop. I find it all weird. I really do. I go here and I see on why. I see on why. Whoopi is acting of what he did, and just like Whoopi said, stop showing the video and stop. I find it all weird.
So the other side of the weirdness, right, where I'm not gonna say just one part, right, like Reckless doesn't understand triggers, because he probably does. I don't know that if he does it or not. But I know a lot of people in the Black and brown community, mental health, there's more stigmas around it than there are positive thoughts around it. Okay, so the other side to what he's saying is that he finds it weird. Well, that would be because the view is extremely liberal, right? So we're not going to say democratic, but let's just say liberal. Let's even go as far as to say they could be a little bit far left because that has been attributed to them, right? We know that the liberals, and now you'll say even the far left Democrats, they've been accused of some of the most heinous crimes in history when it comes to government. We know this already, whether it's sex trafficking, child sex trafficking, bribery, arson, even if they hired somebody, like, and there's no need to throw names out there. There's people, we can either do the research or some of us just remember those people high up in government who seem to be on the liberal side of things, and that these crimes were attributed to them. Like, we know that, right? So why is it okay? Because that just seems to be what's on the far left of the liberal side. Like, abuse is okay, extortion is okay, child trafficking is okay, right? And this is why you have so many people saying things like, why aren't Kamala Harris and Joe Biden being put on trial, or at least being, asked or questioned as to what happened to all these missing children? Like, forget about the adults. Eventually we'll catch up to the adults, right? But where are all these children? Like, how did all of these children just disappear? They're somewhere, right? Okay, this is why so many people have a problem with it, because you had people say things like, if this were a Republican administration, they would have all been in jail. Well, why would they say that? Because what we've watched them do to Donald Trump. He was literally the first president, when he wasn't in active status of president, to be prosecuted the way that he was. It was literally ridiculous. It was a clown show, because they were trying to make it so that people in America would not dare vote for this criminal, right? And it backfired on them. So the part of that reckless is saying, like, it seems odd, it's because, yeah, the far left liberal party, they can be odd like that. They can be okay with certain types of abuse, or even when Reckless is saying, like, I feel like Sonny would have been different if this was a white person. I'm like, maybe to the extent where what she would have thought he was more guilty, because Sonny does fall on the far left side. That's been attributed to Sonny for years, right? So we know that she's been okay about being deemed as the liberal or the Democratic Party. She's been in support of it. So it's not hard for me to really understand why she would feel this way. I get what he's saying, though. Yeah, she's kind of giving, like, the government or the prosecution is trying to push this in a way, because this is a black man who's an entrepreneur and he's very successful. I don't think it has anything to do with those things, if I'm honest with you. I don't think it has anything, because there's plenty of people who are like that and they just haven't committed those type of crimes. They haven't been a part of those type of things. So I can definitely understand what he's saying. There's some truth to what he's saying when he's like, it seems odd to me. It's like, yeah, because the far left liberals, they're odd. They're an odd group of people.
I really do. I go here and I see on why. I see on why, Whoopi is acting a certain way. She actually had a relationship with taking a picture with Harvey, as y'all can see, and with Diddy. So she actually had or not had, have a relationship. And I find it pretty wild. I absolutely find it pretty wild. That they're actually, and I really can't even say that I'm surprised. I actually cannot say that I'm surprised. After seeing that and seeing people tag me in different things, and that's why I wanted to touch base on this video.
Brave of Cassie to be testifying today on the stand while he's in the courtroom.
She's 8.5 months pregnant, about to give birth.
Gosh, I didn't realize that. And then incredibly intimate, brutal things she had to endure. And I really hope she gets the justice she deserves.
We're gonna be
One last thing about the jury. I think the jury is really important. It's a very diverse jury. There are 12 men on it, 8 women. That's because there are 6 alternates. It's diverse socioeconomically. It's diverse by race. It's diverse by gender. It's multi-generational. When the older people, I watch juries, I think cases are won and lost by during jury selection, actually. And the older people were very concerned about a lot of the disturbing sexually explicit details they heard. The younger people, not so much. And so I think there may be a generational aspect to jury deliberations.
Well, I also think there's certain things people just don't want to see you do.
Yeah.
They don't want to see you kicking a woman down the hall.
Yeah.
They don't want to hear someone testify and say, well, we got a call saying this was going on and he offered me money and I had to turn the money down. People don't want to hear women down the hall.
Yeah.
They don't want to hear someone testify and say, well,
I would absolutely want to hear that. I would absolutely want to hear that just for the simple fact of I need to know what all is going on. I need to know everything. I feel like right now they're protecting him, bro. That's what I feel like. I feel like right now they're protecting him. Especially Whoopi. I feel like this is more of a protection of what she's saying. Protect him on live, on ABC, on The View. That's what that's what it's giving off. Of more protection when it comes down to it. And that's what's bothering me a lot. It's bothering me a lot, bro. That she's really sitting here doing this. People don't want to hear that. I mean, I'm sure y'all would. Just for the simple fact of this is what
Listen,
because now you just
they
I'm
don't want
telling
to
y'all,
hear
bro.
that type of stuff.
It gets sicker.
Yeah.
They don't want to hear someone testify and say, well, we got a call saying this was going on and he offered me money and I had to turn the money down. People don't want to hear that. So,
Well, the problem is they didn't charge him with domestic violence.
no.
But the jury still doesn't want to necessarily see a woman being
nobody
abused
wants to see
over
that.
and over.
Nobody wants to see that. And it's an 8-week trial and you'll be there.
Me personally, they said women, obviously I'm a man, but I don't know, how do y'all feel? Is this something that you want to see, especially, with being on a jury and stuff like that? Is that something that you want to, me personally, I feel like, yes, you need to see what's going on. I mean, believe it or not, and it will be an uncomfortable feeling. I mean, if you have a soul, bro, like it's pretty, things can be pretty graphic. I mean, things can be pretty sad. But at the end of the day, you obviously need to see what's going on. You need to see what the type of person that he is. You need to see all of it. And I feel like that is one of the most important things to do, is to have people that's testifying, saying what really went on, showing the videos, this, that, and the other. For them to sit here in these seats and say that they need to stop showing the video and Whoopi protecting them is actually insane to me. But I can't be surprised seeing who it's coming from. Y'all let me know y'all comments and thoughts on this video. Stay tuned for the next video drop today. Definitely a banger. You already know I dropped nothing but bang.
Shout out to Reckless, guys. Shout out to Reckless. Yeah, so like I said, the far left liberals, the extremists, they could be a weird group of people. So, when Reckless is saying, I find it odd, it's like, yeah, man, because they're odd like that. All right, guys, switching gears, we're going to go over to Bill O'Reilly. Putin breaks out of peace talks. Will Trump end birthright citizenship? We're going to take a look at that. And just as a reminder, guys, we have been going through the Diddy trial, so we finished day 5. That was on Friday, right? There's not going to be a trial Saturday and Sunday, so day 6 will be on Monday. We'll have some coverage on that. So let's go ahead and check out what Bill O'Reilly had to say about Putin backing out of peace talks, which isn't shocking. Putin seems to renege quite often. He does. And will Trump end birthright citizenship? Let me fast forward past this.
In 2025, stand up for your country. One of the big problems we have in the USA is a lack of unity. We all know that. I guess the height of our assemblage was World War II. 99% of Americans were united to defeat the totalitarians in Germany and Italy and Japan. But now, I don't know, it's a 60-40 split, 60% traditional Americans, 40 don't like the country very much. They're on that side that it's basically everything needs to change. So anyway, there are opposing points of view, and that's a good thing, but they're not respected as much as they used to be. And one of the reasons is that people believe what they want to believe, and we'll get into that in a moment. But there's another big reason why this division is taking place, and that is delusion. Many of us in America live in a delusional bubble, not in the real world. We don't want the real world. We don't want to go anywhere near the real world. We want to take narcotics. We want to drink ourselves into a stupor. We want to believe stuff that's insane. And we seek it out. We don't want to deal with reality. That is a very difficult situation to overcome, and that is the subject of this evening's talking points memo. So, again, people believe what they want to believe, and you know them. I know them. They're in my life, not close to me. I can't deal with delusional people, but on the periphery. And you could go in with 10 facts, and they'll just don't even listen. No, you know them. There's nothing you can do.
People.
And then you can get them hypnotized.
We all know that.
But there's nothing you can do.
Nope.
So I've come to the point in my life where I don't try. I go, okay, you want to believe that? You go believe it. It's not true, but I did all I can do.
That's where I'm at.
Also, there are a lot of people who just don't care about what's true. I mean, it doesn't matter to them. Now, I was raised in a home where there was a right and a wrong. And then I went to Catholic school where there was a right and a wrong. I was usually in the wrong, so I experienced that very vividly. But now, we don't live in that world right and wrong anymore. Traditional homes have it, but secular homes don't. It's like, oh, well, whatever you want to do is fine. All right, now, once you get into that world, then if you act out, you can hurt people. And I'm going to give you a very vivid example of this. So yesterday, Robert Kennedy Jr., the Secretary of Health and Human Services, testified for the House Appropriations Committee. There are a bunch of radical leftists in the audience.
Radical
They don't like
leftists.
Kennedy, they don't like America, they don't like anyone. One of these radical Americans, a guy named Ben Cohen, that's Ben and Jerry's. I'm sure you call out, but you know.
Co-founder of Ben and Jerry.
Okay, here's what happened. Go.
So during the Senate hearing, which I thought the court officers, they were moving like pretty aggressively, but you know, I guess warranted. But during this hearing, they're like, you see them kind of pulling people out, and you know, they're taking people out pretty aggressively, throwing them out, and then they're literally carrying one lady out. She's like up in the air, and they're screaming. They start to scream at first, RFK kills people with AIDS.
The witness will suspend. The committee will come to order. Capitol Police are asked to remove the individuals from the interview. Members of the audience are reminded disruptions will not be tolerated.
And he says Congress pays for bombs that kills kids in Gaza. That's what Ben Cohen yells out.
All right, Congress pays for bombs to kill kids in Gaza. Okay, that's anarchy. If those people ever got control, there'd be massive violence. They'd kill you if you disagree with them. And my opinion, but I've seen it throughout history. You're irrational. You live in that far, and you could be on the right too. You could be Adolf. Hey, he's great. We love the Nazis. Holocaust didn't happen. Same thing. No difference. But we see it played out more in America on the far left because the media accepts the far left where it doesn't accept the far right or even conservative.
Yeah.
Okay. So later on, Mr. Cohen appears on News Nation with Cuomo. Go.
It didn't really have anything to do with Bobby Kennedy. What it had to do with is that Congress has been cutting money for Medicaid, the health care for poor kids, and they're using the money they save doing that to bomb other poor kids in Gaza. And now, there's this, they're halting all the food aid that's going in, so they're starving the people of Gaza.
That's just insane.
Yeah.
All right, so run down the facts. I'm only doing this as an intellectual exercise. I don't care what Ben Cohen says. I would never buy any Ben and Jerry's, even though they don't own it anymore. I don't want anything to do with it. Okay?
Yo, that chocolate fudge brownie, that hits though.
Okay? So, there have been no cuts in Medicaid because that bill hasn't passed. They want to reform the waste because it's totally out of control in that program, but there's no cuts, okay? There's no cuts for health care for poor kids. In fact, entitlement spending is at all-time high, all right? American money is not being diverted from our entitlement programs to Israel so they can bomb poor kids. Okay, that's about as fallacious a statement as you could possibly have. Israel is defending itself against terror attacks from Hamas. Hamas lives in civilian areas in Gaza, and children have gotten hurt in the crossfire. Every war that's happened. I'm not justifying anything. I'm just telling you what the facts are. Okay? So Israel's supposed to say, oh yeah, come on. You attack our people, you kill our children. We're not going to do anything because you're hiding behind your children. And that's what Hamas is doing.
Yep.
Brands are not.
They hide behind civilians all the time.
We are living in a world where nothing is original, everything's a dupe, and...
But always though. Okay, so Cohen is delusional. Doesn't care. And then he raises a very interesting question. The United States, he says, is helping the bomb, or actually bombing, killing the kids. Here are the facts. You will remember, and this story died fast, but I've resurrected it today. You remember President Biden allocating millions of dollars, $230 million to be exact, to build a platform in the Mediterranean Sea off the coast of Gaza to get food to the hungry people there. You remember that story, okay? It went nowhere. They built the pier. It operated for 20 days. And then devolved into chaos. 62 U.S. servicemen were hurt because of terrorist activity over there. 62. Okay? They couldn't get the food to the Gazan because the terrorists, Hamas, stole it. As soon as it got from the platform built into the sea, into the mainland, the guys with the machine guns came out and took it all.
Yep.
Ben know that? Hey Ben, you know that? That's why they can't get any food in there, because Hamas steals it.
Yep.
That's why they're starving. Now the United States, Biden.
But notice, we don't ever hear this on the news. Like, you don't ever hear MSNBC or CNN or even Fox report something like that. That, oh, the reason why that it seems like children are starving there is because Hamas steals it. No, they don't ever say anything like that.
Tried to do something, and of course it was a fiasco because everything under Biden pretty much was a fiasco. The goal was to feed 500,000 people each month for 3 months. Yep. They didn't get any food in there to speak of. All right? And then it took 1,000 U.S. forces to evacuate the people who were in there trying to feed the Gazans because they would have been murdered. That's what happened.
Yep.
No reportage on it.
No.
Biden, did Biden say anything about it? No. So actually, the intent was noble to get food to starving people, but Biden couldn't carry it out. He couldn't carry out anything. Nothing. And that's what happened. So when I hear this irrational stuff, and I said I'm giving you one very clear example tonight, it drives me crazy because this is surging in America. This kind of crazy stuff. This is what's going on college campuses. Look, they're starving. The U.S. government's bombing the poor kids. They're starving them. That's what's going on at Harvard and Columbia. And if a guy like me walks in with a sheet of facts, then they're going to hate me. And they won't believe anything.
Yep.
And that's a number. We don't know where President Trump, we know he's sleeping in Qatar in Doha, but we don't know what he's going to do tomorrow. I think he's going to come back because there's nowhere else for him to go at this point. But it's been a successful Gulf trip economically for him, I believe. Now, there was supposed to be peace talks between Zelensky and Putin and Turkey. Mm-hmm. That's a fiasco.
Yep.
There are Russians and Ukrainians there in Turkey, but they're not meeting together. And Zelensky showed up. Secretary of State Marco Rubio was supposed to show up, but he's not going now because Putin didn't show up.
Yep.
So
are we shocked? No, we're not.
This is nothing. It's nothing. It's Aragon and Zelensky, and then but there's no. Putin doesn't want a ceasefire. So I didn't know that, and Trump certainly didn't know it. I thought that Putin would come around. When the West offered him money and stuff like that. I thought, you're losing hundreds of thousands of Russians dead and wounded in there. You're not getting anywhere. The world hates you. I thought he'd come to, but he didn't want to. Now, ultimately, the only thing that's going to force Vlad to the table is if we punish him more. We being Europe and America. And that's what we should do now. So Trump should go back to Washington and say, okay, sending Zelensky all the weapons he needs. EU will send him all the weapons he needs, NATO. And then we'll slap more sanctions on Putin. You won't be able to do banking business. And we'll just make it as painful as possible. That's what you're going to have to do. Putin does not want to solve this. Doesn't care if people die. And when you read my book, Confronting Evil, which will be out in September, you'll see that all these people have that in common. All these tyrants, all these evildoers, they don't care if people die. They don't care. So long as they're not dying. Okay. Supposed to be another meeting tomorrow. Steve Wyckoff is over there, who knows? But unless there's a miracle, we're going to have to punish Vlad. And we should. If you're a business owner and your ads are falling flat while your competitors dominate the market, well, listen up. Because you definitely don't want to miss this. Look, thousands of brands have already scaled fast with FYSI and their innovative marketing strategies. FYSI builds smart multi-channel campaigns that drive real sales and elevate your brand's presence. Folks, this is what separates billion-dollar companies from the small companies. FYSI can help you stand out. And right now they're offering a free $5,000 risk assessment. Just thousands of people involved with Bill O'Reilly. No downside. No, and we don't give, see, a lot of people give out addresses and things. We never do that. We get people calling, we have hundreds of thousands of people involved with BillO'Reilly.com. What are your thoughts on this? Now, I've done this. I know you can't go on Long Island. I have mixed feelings about the plane gift the Saudis wanting to give to Trump. But what it's Qatar, not Saudi Arabia. What are your thoughts on this? Now, I've done this.
Qatar,
I know you can't
Saudi
watch
Arabia.
I know you can't watch every show. But if you're a concierge member, you get a transcript of all the shows free of charge. I don't think that Donald Trump should take a gift from Qatar. Take a loan. Just have a loan your plane.
Right.
And then when you're out.
And Bill has said this.
What I would do. John Botcher, Dayton, Ohio. Bill, I hear it said all the time, U.S. is the richest country in the world. That can be true if we owe $37 trillion because it's per capita income.
If you have an old junky air conditioning or heating system like this,
it's per capita income. Yeah.
Jim, the country owes $37 trillion, not you and me.
Right.
Yeah, we're part of the country, but that debt's not on our resume.
Right.
What you have in the bank and your assets, that's what is the richest country in the world. U.S. citizens have more assets than anybody else.
Right.
Melanie, tax cuts for the rich, a phrase we have heard for 30 years. That's all the Democrats have. It's old and worn out. It's old and worn out unless you don't know anything.
Mm-hmm.
And Melanie, a lot of people don't know anything.
Or you want to stay ignorant.
George. When I was young in the 50s and 60s, almost everyone was focused on self-help, self-sufficiency. It was embarrassment not to be able to take care of yourself. But now things have changed. Since LBJ's Great Society, charitable help has been devolved from being appreciated to being expected and demanded. That is a very good analysis from George.
It's a good statement, too.
It used to be, thank you. Thanks for saving my family with the safety net. Thank you, my neighbors, for your tax dollars. Now it's way.
Not to mention, it used to be thank you. It used to be like he said, the writer said, George, when he was young in the 50s and 60s, it used to be frowned upon that if you couldn't take care of yourself. Now he's like, because of LBJ's, right, London Baines Johnson society, he's like, it seems like help has gone from something that people are grateful for to now it's something that people expect.
It used to be thank you. Thanks for saving my family with the safety net. Thank you, my neighbors, for your tax dollars. Now it's, hey, let's go. With my big change.
Yeah.
That's what happens in a welfare state. Philip Merkham, Wick Life, Ohio. Bill, great job in hearing about cutbacks in food banks due to Trump cuts. Is this true? I don't know. There are going to be cuts in the federal government. There are going to be cuts in spending. Is it going to be in some food bank in Ohio? Maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
It's up to the locals.
Yeah, it is. Maybe.
It's up to the locals. Trump's not going to go along with the food bank cut.
Yeah.
But we got to stop the massive spending. All
right, guys, so I'm going to cut it there. I want you to go ahead and go over to Bill O'Reilly's channel and give him his due views. That's something that he covered actually on Monday, and we covered it early in a live stream in this week in one of the live streams. I think we covered it Monday or Tuesday. So with that, guys, we're going to switch over and switch gears. Are we really shocked that Putin didn't show up to the meeting? No, we're not shocked. I mean, it's kind of annoying. I'm not going to lie, right? And this is the reason why. This is the reason why you heard Jasmine Crockett say something to the effect of Donald Trump needs to do something about Vladimir Putin because he's reneged on almost every single thing that they've spoken about. And that's pretty much true to an extent. Like, Putin does do that, you know? So, but if someone were to ask, okay, so if you know Putin does that, why would you even have any support for our president at all? Okay, other than the fact that I've said to you guys hundreds of times probably now at this point that I don't come on and just bash the commander-in-chief. It's also that Donald Trump, he's a strategist, right? So he's a strategist. He's not going to like jump the gun, you know, and get all frustrated and be like, he's slow and he's steady, right? And that's the way that he's going to stay. He knows that Russia is Russia's a huge country. Did you know that North America and South America on a world map fit inside of the country of Russia? That's how big Russia is. Like, so Trump is not ignorant to this, right? Also not ignorant to things that have been going on in China and things that China's been doing. So he's not going to move haphazardly when it comes to Russia. I think right now to us it looks like that. I think he has something up his sleeve. What is it? I do not know. Like Bill O'Reilly, he always gives these great analysis that he has, and sometimes he said I could be wrong, and I'm saying I could be wrong. He could have nothing up his sleeve, but based on what I've seen, and I watched Donald Trump his first term and this term very closely thus far, and I watched him campaign and all of that. I think he has something up his sleeve. We would just have to wait and see. All right, guys, so switching gears, we're going to jump over to Real Time with Bill Maher. Shout out to Bill Maher. He could be such a potty mouth. I mean, man, if he was my grandfather, I would be so upset with him. But Overtime with Bill Maher, he has Scott Jennings on and Peter Hamley. We're going to take a look. Scott Jennings is a CNN news anchor, the one that probably leans the most conservative on the panel. I always say Scott usually gets a little beaten up, but let's take a listen.
All right, welcome to Overtime. He hosts Snapchat's Good Luck America, Peter Hamley, and he's an author and CNN senior political contributor, Scott Jennings. And the first question is for you, Scott, as someone who's
Hold on, what did you say about Peter Hamley?
Good Luck America, Peter Hamley.
He hosts Snapchat's Good Luck America.
He's an author and CNN senior political contributor, Scott Jennings. And the first question is for you, Scott, as someone who's considering a Senate run to replace him. What? You're not? Usually when someone puts out a book, it means they're going to run for office. Not always, but that always is.
Isn't writing a book the fastest way to get rich in America right now?
No.
That's how it was OnlyFans.
No, you don't get rich writing books, I need to tell you, bro. Anyway, what do you believe will be Mitch McConnell's legacy? I guess that's who you'd be replacing, right?
Yeah.
When you run for Senate, if you run for Senate.
He's up in 26. Supreme Court, I mean, without question. He had a long career, 42 years, won 7 elections in Kentucky, but without question, I think his legacy is the court, specifically the Supreme Court. If he doesn't hold that seat open in the 2016 election, I'm not sure President Trump would have won, and then the cascade of appointments that followed will change the course of this country for generations.
And if people don't remember what you're talking about, in 2015, Scalia died, was that it? It was, or was it 16?
15. Yeah.
15, okay. So Obama still had over a year in office. And usually when a president is in office, he gets to choose who the Supreme Court nominee. He wanted Merrick Garland, and Mitch McConnell would not even give him a hearing. That was unprecedented. What is the latest bullshit argument why that's okay?
If the bullshit you're referring to is the advise and consent clause in the U.S. Constitution,
no.
That's the argument.
At the time, the argument was it's too close to an election. It was 2015.
Well, that wasn't the full argument. The full argument was we had divided government, and the American people were going to make a decision, and they did, and they chose a Republican president.
Well, as I just said in the editorial, if it had been the other way around, you would have went apeshit about it. If somebody had tried, no, you would have been cool with it.
Well, I lived through the Bush years when the Democrats in the Senate did everything they could possibly do to obstruct George W. Bush from putting judges on the court. So it's not the first time.
Not judges. This is Supreme Court. And did Bush get a pick on the Supreme Court?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and they gave him a hearing, and then they voted on it. They could have voted him not. We've seen that. Nixon suggested 2 people who they didn't put on the court. You can do that, but you get to actually have a hearing. This was completely unprecedented and unconstitutional and illegal. And by the way, your hero, Mitch McConnell, when they asked him if he would do it again, he said, sure. You know, I mean, and then they did do it again in reverse. When Amy Coney Barrett was put on the court, it was the exact same thing. It was even closer to an election.
It was literally like 3 weeks, a month before the election.
Well, we didn't have divided government then. We had unified government.
That's what I'm saying. It's situational for you.
Right, exactly. It's just, you know.
But why do you guys against the exercising of political power?
That's the exercise of political power is fine. This is unconstitutional. That's what we're against. We're against going outside the law. They wrote it down. It's very clear. Same thing as some of the things Trump is saying now about a 3rd term. It's very clear. It's in the Constitution. Aren't you the guys who carry the little pocket Constitution in your thing? Yeah. Don't you have one under your pocket?
Pocket Constitution is a thing.
2 terms. It says a president gets to pick who is the guy they're going to put up in the Supreme Court.
And it says the Senate has to confirm them, and it says the Senate gets to advise and consent on this, and that's up to the Senate on how they do that. It's a co-equal branch of government.
Oh, so that is the latest bullshit argument. All right, that was my point. All right, I knew there was one. Okay. What did you make of Donald Trump's post this morning alleging that since I said I hate Taylor Swift? This guy. All the deals, but he still has time for this. He got it. Since I said I hate, she's no longer hot. Or I don't think he means physically hot. I think he means hot in the business. I think, she just finished the biggest.
Are you sure he doesn't mean physically hot?
I don't. I do not.
I assume he's criticizing her looks. That was my first reaction.
No,
Oh, no longer. I don't think he means that. I recall when he went to the Super Bowl earlier this year, he noted at the time that the crowd booed her and cheered him. I think at that point he started to detect that she was faltering with the public. And I will say
this actually. Scott has a point here. I mean, first of all, she made over $1 billion. She's $1 billion on that
biggest
tour.
Tour ever.
Yeah, like biggest tour ever in history. When she endorsed Kamala Harris right before the election, and it was a very sort of, I think it was like an Instagram post or something. Her approval ratings, like people polled this stuff. Her approval ratings went up with Democrats, but with Republicans and Independents, they actually went down strikingly. Like people don't like celebrities and politicians getting involved in elections.
They really don't. I think it actually
especially if you pick the wrong
But that was
one.
after her tour, like in the middle. She's fine. She'll be fine. But I don't think
she's
not hot.
Right. She's not unpopular. She's not as hot in the industry now because she just finished a giant tour, so she needs time to, relax and be with that football player. And by the way, they weren't. When she got booed, they weren't booing her in general. What they were booing was, we don't like you so much in football. Let us just have football. Let us have one thing without Taylor Swift involved. That's what that was about. Okay, Kash Patel says he's shutting down the FBI's DC headquarters and moving staff across the country. Should other government agencies be doing the same? That's an interesting proposition. I'm not against that from the get for any reason. I mean, everything probably is too concentrated in Washington. It's a little too incestuous, right?
I have a take on this about the media. I think news organizations should incorporate more bureaus outside of New York, LA, and Washington.
Oh, totally.
And Cincinnati and wherever, because the bias in media I'm sure you would agree, can be liberal, but it's like less political to me than it is cultural and class-based. And I just hire more reporters in Des Moines, hire fewer reporters in DC.
Wouldn't bother me in the slightest if the agriculture department was in Iowa and the Department of Homeland Security was somewhere. I mean, Washington, there's a concentration of people there who only talk to each other. They live in this little bubble. And I think the longer you're in it, the less you have in common with regular Americans. You put some of those government workers out in the middle of the country, they might have a little bit better understanding of how people are feeling about how their government's operating.
Do you work out of Washington?
No, I live in Kentucky.
You contribute to CNN out of Kentucky?
Yep, I get up on Mondays, I fly to New York, I do shows there, I come down on the train, and then I go home to Kentucky at the end of the week, and my house is just outside of Louisville.
Sounds like you're running. All right, thank you. Thank you,
It sounds like good money. Scott Jennings to replace Mitch McConnell. Well, I mean, I don't think that would be horrible. He is a senior political contributor, so it's not like he's a rookie over there at CNN. I don't think it would be horrible. I mean, I think Scott has some pretty solid views. When I usually hear him speak, normally he is defending President Trump and the administration. And when he sees wrong, he points it out. A lot of people will say, well, he bashed President Joe Biden. I wouldn't say he bashed him, but he did point out like a lot of the wrongdoing, a lot of things that were faulty. And, people who were fans of President Joe Biden, they didn't really like that about him. So I can understand that. But Scott Jennings replacing Mitch McConnell, I don't think it's too far out there. So let's see what happens with that. All right, guys, switching gears, we're going to jump over to the Toronto Sun. Shout out to Canada, my second most watched country on my channel. Batra's burning questions. Bumpy ride so far for Carney government in 1 week. I mentioned earlier in the live stream, I haven't covered much Canadian news since the election, and that was because I wasn't the happiest that Mark Carney won. With that being said, we're still going to cover the election because I care about Canada and Canadians, and I want to see what's going on over there, so when I go to my visits, I know what I'm visiting. So let's check it out.
Hire a banker, they said. Put Mark Carney in the House of Commons, they said. Everything will be calm and steady. But after his cabinet appointments and some of his own actions, could Canada be heading towards our own, yet again, national nightmare? Hello, everyone. I'm Adrienne Bachelor. With me are Brian Lilly and Warren Kinsella. Elbows up. Remember? Elbows up. We saw the dancing, Brian. Thumbs up.
Thumbs up.
He goes
Thumbs
to the White
up in the White
House
House.
and has a good meeting with President Trump. Still nothing. We've heard zero on trade. We anticipate that forthcoming. But we have a prime minister who claims to want to fight against the U.S., but is acting and putting through and putting laws into this country as if he's doing executive orders, just like Donald Trump. I find the whole thing bizarre. Let's break it down.
As we look to build out this economy, it's my pleasure on behalf of the Cabinet to sign this order to deliver that tax cut et respecter nos engagements, notre engagement pour les Canadiens et les Canadiennes. Thank you very much.
Brian, what is Does Prime Minister Carney know he's not a president, can't sign executive orders?
He loves the performance aspect of this, doesn't he? I'll hand it to him. I didn't think he was that kind of guy. This is the second time he's had a cabinet meeting, invited the cameras in, signs a fake executive order. Look, we do have an equivalent of executive orders. They're called orders in cabinet, and you need, I believe, at the federal level, at least 4 cabinet ministers to sign them. So he did this with lowering the carbon tax to 0. He just signed it as if I'm Donald Trump. Here's me signing the order. And now he's done it saying, I direct you to get a middle-class tax cut by July 1st. Look, we know he promised it, and I'm going to welcome the tax cut. Everyone should. But why the performance art? Why the aping of Donald Trump and the executive orders while claiming that you are elbows up against Trump?
Which to me is hilarious, right? Because everyone was afraid that Pierre was mini Donald Trump. This is what they were saying in Canada. They're like, we don't want Pierre, like the liberals out there who didn't want him to win. They're like, he's a mini Donald Trump. And look at what Mark Carney's doing. Oh, could it be because his family lives in New York? Okay, I digress.
It's 0 sense to me, but it also undermines our way of governing. I mean, this is a guy who's already governing without Parliament. Parliament hasn't sat since mid-December. I think it's around December 16th. And here we are in the middle of May. We will have Parliament come back in 2 weeks for a couple of weeks and not even pass a budget, and then recess for the summer and come back in the fall. Still no budget. Nothing expected until maybe November or December, and we'll have a fall economic statement. This guy is trying to govern in a very imperial presidential style.
Warren, I appreciate the attempt at transparency, and I know that's certainly what U.S. President Donald Trump is saying he's doing by opening it all up, showing people what they're doing. I just find with Carney's actions, from your perspective, someone who has been on the Hill, been at all levels of government, seen how we achieve our legislation, what was your response to seeing all that?
Well, it's not, as both of you pointed out, how our system of government works. We do not have an executive in the way of the United States, but even in the United States, a lot of the executive orders that Donald Trump has signed require the approval of Congress. So even in that case, it's not real. I am astounded he's done this. Like, maybe you give him a break.
I get what he's saying when he says even in that sense it's not real, but I can say that that's partially true. Right now, when people talk about a unified government, we talk about that Republicans have the entire House, right? So in this case, when Donald Trump is signing EOs, we've seen them pass and we've seen them go through. I think that's less likely. I know that that's less likely when the Republicans do not have the House and it's more of a split, or if the Democrats are the ones who have the majority vote, which right now we don't see that. We see the Republicans with the majority vote. We see the Republicans with the entire House. So that's why a lot of the EOs that Donald Trump signs, when he signs them, that's why it sends people into a frenzy right now, because they know that it's going to pass for the most part. And they have been passing.
On the carbon tax one, it was kind of campaign related. Mm-hmm. God knows campaigns are all about show and tell kind of stuff. But this was bizarre, and apparently what he signed were mandate letters to ministers. So basically, those are the prime minister or a premier sends them to their ministers saying, "Here's what I expect of you. Here's the objectives I've got for your department and for the government."
It was actually just a little document that said, I instruct the ministers to work to pass a tax cut by July 1st.
Which is a mandate letter. So anyway, we're getting in the weeds here. The point is, it is not something that is of force and effect, as lawyers say. That's not how our system works. And again, our system shouldn't work where we've been without a budget for months from the government of Canada. Like, I have no idea when these guys plan to have a budget, and that is unacceptable. So we've got the Showtime stuff on the one hand, we've got some substantive document like the budget of Canada, where we don't know when it is coming, perhaps in the fall. It's not a good start.
Okay, speaking of stumbling out of the gates, so to speak, Let's talk about this cabinet that Carney has put together. You know, Warren and I recently were on radio together. We were trying to be optimistic on the day of the announcement that, you know, this is not going to be a show type of government, you know, that we had under Trudeau. But Brian, we had the very first day after their announcement as cabinet ministers, we had the justice minister saying he's going to work from home. We had a Treasury Board minister who apparently has a propensity to vote from the bathroom. We have a new foreign affairs minister who is blaming Israel for a war that Hamas started. We have no budget coming from the finance minister. And then we have a minister responsible for Canadian identity that is likely going to be single-handedly responsible for potentially ripping this country apart by shutting down the idea of pipelines across Canada. And now we have a new housing minister who says, nothing's wrong in housing, the prices are fine. What the hell happened here?
Well, first off, I want to thank Warren for reminding me that our Treasury Board President, Mr. Shavkat Ali, was previously most well known for voting from the stall of the men's room.
Yeah.
There's not much that you do in the stall of the men's room, so we all know what he was doing while he's voting in the House of Commons and had to apologize. I'd completely forgotten that. And by the way, I've read 3 of his bios, still don't know much about the guy, other than he came to Canada at some point as a young man with a suitcase and a dream, sold some real estate, and is now president of the Treasury Board. It's a Canadian success story.
And Vote Palestine, don't forget, he's the most senior minister who's embraced the Vote Palestine platform.
Yeah, really? So there's a lot of worrisome things going on in here, and
that's troubling.
Look, every government needs to stay on message, and I hate when governments stay on message. I was over at Queen's Park earlier today, and I was saying that to a provincial cabinet minister whose eyes were, you know, he was bug-eyed about the federal cabinet outs yesterday, saying, "What happened?" And I said, "Yeah, I love this when they stay off message, but from a government perspective, you need to stay on message." And Mark Carney does that big interview with Vashi Kapellas. Very good interview. Kudos to Vashi. She pushed him hard. He pushed back. I like it when politicians do that. You get to learn more about them. But he said, yes, I'm open to pipelines. I'm open to these changes. I'm open to more oil and gas projects. And then Stephen Guilbeault, Minister for Canadian Identity, which apparently means Minister of Everything, comes out and says, we don't need more pipelines. We're about to hit peak oil. TMX isn't even operating at 50% capacity, which, by the way, is misinformation. I thought the Heritage Minister, Minister of Canadian Identity, was supposed to fight against that. So he puts out misinformation, he puts out absolute lies, contradicts the boss. That's the worst part. Warren can tell you more about that, but you contradict the boss. That's bad news for a minister. The, Anita Anand coming out as our foreign affairs minister and blaming all the deaths on Israel when Hamas started the war, doesn't even denounce Hamas, doesn't mention them.
Food and aid to Gaza. What do you think of that decision? And is the Canadian government doing anything to stop that?
We cannot allow the continued use of food as a political tool. The Prime Minister has been very clear about that. Over 50,000 people have died as a result of the aggression caused against the Palestinian and the Gazan people in Palestine, and using food as a political tool is simply unacceptable, and we need to continue to work towards a ceasefire. We need to ensure that we have a two-state solution, and Canada will continue to maintain that position.
I said that as soon as she was appointed. Great, we've gone from one Hamasnik, Melanie Joly, to another in Anita Anand, and then Gregor Robertson, the new housing minister, who was mayor of Vancouver when their housing prices doubled, and municipal governments are mostly responsible for housing policy and issues. He's out at 10 o'clock at night doing a multi-part explanation of why he said no when he was asked if housing prices need to come down. Basically, the housing policy of the Liberal government is that guy from Brantford, the boomer, giving everyone the double bird.
And Warren, we already talked about the fact that there is not going to be a federal budget. Pretty much every province in the country has been able to put forward a budget. Ontario, the biggest province in the country, is about to unveil theirs today. So it's troubling that we're not going to see the true finances of what's going on in this country. But I wanted to pick up on a couple of these other cabinet ministers. We've already touched on them, but let's go a little bit deeper. Let's talk about the calamity that we knew Melanie Joly was as our foreign affairs minister. We now have Anita Anand in there, who by all measures everybody said very positive things about, but the files that she was responsible for in the past didn't go well, procurement most notably. But now we have her in foreign affairs, and she takes to criticizing Israel for a war that Hamas started. And I'm wondering what your take is on her doing that, like almost as her first thing out of the gate.
Well, they are out of the gate. This is really the first time we've had a functioning federal government in many months. So it was really, really important in communications terms, in political terms, that they communicate well. And as Brian's pointed out, the Prime Minister did okay in his interview with Vassie. And, apart from the performative theater with the mandate letter, he has done okay. As I predicted in my column on the day of the shuffle, if this government was going to have big problems, it was going to be problems coming from the newbies, either people new to big portfolios like Anand, or those who have never even been a member of parliament before, and it certainly have never been a minister. There's 24 newcomers to this government, to this cabinet. 13 of them have never been a member of parliament. Now, I know that Carney was trying to project newness. He was trying to project change, but he was taking on a huge risk by bringing on people with no experience whatsoever in politics at that level. The government of Canada is not just a mom and pop popsicle shop. It is the biggest organization in the country with a budget of billions upon billions of dollars. It's critically important now when we're facing.
I wonder what his take would be on Donald Trump then when he says that. He says that he doesn't like the fact that Mark Carney brought in his 24 members of parliament, he said, and 13 of them have never been a member of parliament before. They don't have the political literacy is what he's getting at. I wonder what he would think about Donald Trump then. He takes this proud stance like Canada is just not some mom and pop sickle shop, and I get that, like neither is the United States, and he didn't say that. I'm just curious, like what would be his stance if that's the way he looks at Canada, with the United States being the United States. What does he think about President Trump? Maybe nothing, because this is his second term, but I wonder what he thought about the first term. Stephen A. Smith, it's because of President Trump that people like Stephen A. Smith are even being considered for the Democratic Party right now, on top of the fact that they have no voice, right? And they're extremely tone deaf. But this is part of the reason why, because Bill O'Reilly touched on this really well, that President Trump has ushered in a certain type of candidate that can come in who isn't extremely political, but who has done well for him or herself, and the American people will consider this person because they're not drinking the Kool-Aid, for lack of better terms, right?
Facing an existential threat from the Trump administration that we have people who are capable, not a housing minister who comes out and says housing prices don't need to go down, not a minister of foreign affairs who comes out and attacks provocatively and deliberately an ally of this country, and a finance minister who comes out and says, I'll give you a budget when I'm good and ready to show it to you. That is not a good start. This was not a good start for this government. And it's not just us at the Toronto Sun or Post Media saying it. Every media organization commenting on this week.
They shouldn't be shocked about this. They shouldn't be shocked about this. Mark Carney was not transparent at all when he was running this election. I would say it time and time and time again during the lives. Shout out to the Elevate podcast. Shout out to the Smart Investor, Todd over there. I watched the Toronto Sun, which we're watching right now, Batra's Questions by Adrian Batra. I watch all these great sources from Canada regarding Mark Carney, and I would also watch him during some of his press conferences. And I was extremely concerned because I would say, Canada, what are you guys watching? Like, if you're watching anything close to what I'm watching, how could you even be considering making this man a prime minister and he's not transparent at all? I mean, this would not, let me tell you something. For this guy who's questioning, like, if he ever did question our president, here's one thing you don't have to worry about. We wouldn't put somebody like that there. Not to that extent. Even the presidents who've been put in office who we the American people don't agree with. They've been put in office, and it's not like it's been someone who we don't know much about them. You know, they're not allowed. Everything comes out once they start to get on that campaign trail. This is why we've even seen candidates start and drop out, right? Because of things that have come out, and maybe they don't want to explain themselves. So they're like, you know what, I'm done with this race. But the way that I saw Mark Carney not being transparent about his finances, not being transparent about, you know, his dealings with going over to some of these other countries as soon as he became prime minister and some of the deals he was making. I told him, I said, dude, he's sus. He's suspect.
You could say, you know what? This has been a really shitty week for this government. They better get their act together.
And this is just the first. This government is in its infancy, Brian. We've got a long road ahead of us just yet. But we would be remiss if we didn't talk about one of the other most significant issues facing every province, every city, and that, of course, is on crime and bail reform. And it's something that the premiers across the country have all written to former public safety ministers and, you know, demanding bail reform, demanding change. We now have a justice minister who said that he wanted to take a break from his family, or wanted to take a break from politics and be with his family. So he quit, but then, you know, the polls were looking better for the Liberals. He got back in, and of course I'm talking about Sean Fraser, former housing minister, disaster. Now justice minister, disaster. He's gonna work from home. And
he's gonna work
Fraser,
from home.
former housing minister, disaster. Now justice minister, disaster.
He's gonna work from home.
He's gonna work from home. And I guess he's gonna get that time with his family, but I just find it odd, Brian, and I recognize I'm working from home. That's the situation in which I'm in, but I'm not the Justice Minister of Canada. What's your take on that sort of very laissez-faire attitude to this major and significant portfolio?
Fire.
Look, I don't want to pick on lawyers.
That's crazy.
Warren.
That's crazy, though. That's crazy. Working
Sean Fraser's a lawyer. Is he qualified to be Justice Minister? This is normally a position that goes to someone who spent a lot of time dealing with criminal law, for example, either as a defense counsel, a prosecutor. You know, Peter MacKay used to represent Central Nova, the same riding that Sean Fraser's from. He was also Justice Minister. Apparently, we put a lot of blue nosers in as Justice Ministers. But Peter MacKay was a prosecutor, and not just for a year or two. Sean Fraser practiced mostly administrative law. He had interest in international law, which always, you know, that's just airy-fairy stuff that has no force in Canada for the most part. It's great theory. He was focused in on things like access to information. Okay, that's important to me as a journalist, but it has no impact on the criminal law. And this guy is now in charge of the criminal law system at a time when violent crime is through the roof. You know, you can't even debate this. This is Statistics Canada data on violent crime more than doubling over the last 10 years. The population hasn't doubled, but violent crime has. Gun crime, and not from guys who are out hunting, that has gone up significantly. Sexual assault, property crimes, home invasions, car thefts, things that people care about have gone up, and the bail issue is massive. Wab Kinew, the new Democrat Premier of Manitoba, was just here in Toronto at Queen's Park. He's one of the people calling for bail reform, saying, we've got to lock criminals up. David Eby, New Democrat Premier of British Columbia on the left coast wants bail reform, says we're not keeping people in jail long enough. We've got these repeat violent offenders that are out on bail, commit a crime, get out on bail, commit another crime, and they're out on bail again. And that is all due to, as much as it pains the Liberals to admit this, due to legislation that they passed.
Let's see that headline right here.
The Liberals to admit this, due to
it says Warmington, man awaiting trial for TTC bus crash, arrested in jail for Peel home invasions. Wow.
Legislation that they passed, and they went above and beyond.
Pickering man is also charged with not complying with 3 release orders on previous alleged crimes. Wow.
Legislation that they passed, and they went above and beyond what the Supreme Court said. They went above and beyond what everybody else wanted. New York State passed similar legislation at the same time, and they walked away from it under the Democrats. We should be doing the same. They have not been willing to do it. They've done minor tweaks. And in speaking to people who know Sean Fraser, they do not expect him to take this file seriously. It's great for Mark Carney to say he wants a true cabinet government. If he's going to fix the problems that even he recognizes exist in the country, I think he's going to have to force a lot of these things, from communications, as in shut your trap when you leave the meeting, down to, no, you are going to fix this problem. No, you're not going to freelance on Israel. Although I think he's closer to Camp Hamas than Camp Jerusalem.
Wow,
but
that's
he's
crazy.
going to have to crack the whip, and that means more centralized control. People love to say we shouldn't have centralized control, and then you see what these clowns do once they leave the room.
Warren, put a fine point on this for us. Canadians, maybe paying attention to some of it, but these clips are making their rounds. They're on the socials. The so-called, more mainstream media, news outlets, they're all covering it, and not in necessarily even a positive way. Even I think CBC had to show these clips. But is your perspective that this is just gonna, these are just first day butterflies and this will settle down? Or are we seeing truly amongst these cabinet ministers in very important portfolios, and particularly in the areas that Canadians were very angry with of the former Liberal government about, and are we just they're showing their true colors? Who really speaks for this government?
Well, the Prime Minister ultimately does, and as I said, I think he's doing all right so far. But his ministers have given him a bad week, and they've had to do a cleanup on aisle 3 already. Gregor Robertson had to walk back his statement, his clear and unambiguous statement that no, housing prices don't need to go down. He actually said that with his own mouth. Well, he had to walk that one back. And then is still out there with her anti-Israel stuff that verges on, in my view, anti-Semitism. So she hasn't walked that back yet. Champagne, I don't know what he's doing. If he's not doing a budget, if you're a minister of finance and you're not putting together a budget, I'm not quite sure what you're going to be doing in your day-to-day job. The problem with all of this is we are, as you pointed out, in the middle of May. We're just a few weeks away from the House of Commons rising for the summer. So, we expected, we wanted, we were told, we were promised that they would hit the ground running. You remember all of that? Yeah. And this is a government that's going to get to work for Canadians and protect our jobs and our way of life. And this is not a good start. It looks really sloppy, it looks really amateur, and it's not what we were led to believe. And, all the talk we've been having a few days ago about Pierre Poilievre and his problems, those are gone. Everybody's now focused on the problems that the Carney government's got. So I think he's got to crack the whip and say, quit screwing around. No more mistakes are allowed. We've got to present a better face to the Canadian people. But he hasn't done that yet.
Well, Canada, if this last week is any indication of what we can expect from the Carney government,
good luck.
It's going to be a very bumpy ride. Well, like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel and go to thetorontosun.com. You'll find commentary and coverage there. You will not find any.
Oh, it's going to be a very bumpy ride. Good luck, guys. I can tell you that right now. So what do we think about that? Mark Carney, his government's giving him a bad week. Not very transparent. Oh, not very transparent, guys. Exactly what I was afraid of.
Are you ready to sell your house?
Exactly what I was afraid of, but nonetheless, we'll watch it play out. I'm extremely interested now to see what my good friends over in Canada, the Elevate podcast, the Simple Investor, some of those guys over there think of all of this, because it is truly interesting to me. All right, guys, so we're going to save Cameron because I want. You know what? I'm not gonna save him. I'm gonna play. Just gonna play a couple of parts for you guys so you can get in. So right now so you can get in on what we went over a little bit last night. So right now we're at the point where Cameron is talking to Father Dan Rehill about exorcist training, and Father Rehill explains like what the training looked like, how he got there in the first place, and then they're gonna just touch on a little bit of like the most intense moment. And then I'll probably go over to his first exorcism, because I didn't think, did he put the second one in here? Where is it? No, he just talked about his first one. Yeah, because that was just right here. Yeah, so we're gonna go over the exorcist training, his exorcist fear, and then his first exorcism. So they're just kind of like little clips we'll watch. So let's jump in. And this is how we end the live stream, guys, with a Christian clip every night. Normally we're usually watching Cliff Buell, but I watch any YouTube content creator that does anything on Christianity or religion or anything in relation to that. So let's take a look.
We never performed the rite, and we actually never needed to. So then he died. The new bishop came in, and I need the bishop's authority to do deliverance ministry, and I didn't have it. So the priests that needed help were calling this new bishop saying, "Can you please send Father Rehill to us? We need help." So he contacted me basically and said, "Why is everybody asking for you?" And I said, "I was doing the deliverance for the diocese." And he said, "Are you the exorcist?" I said, "No, we don't have one." And I explained why, and he said, "I feel like you're fighting with your hands tied behind your back. Go to Rome, get trained, and come back, and I'll install you as the exorcist." And that's what we did.
Huh. Well, what does that training actually look like?
It's pretty intense. I went through a rocket program, which is like, 2 to 3 weeks. Long days, 7 in the morning till 7 at night. Every possible avenue of training, from theology to demonology, practicums. We had exorcists come in from around the world and give their perspective on different areas of the ministry. And then after like 3 weeks or so, they kind of set you free, and you can go back to where you came from, and you begin. And so I was beginning ice cold. Like, we had no exorcist here before me. And so I was happily paired up with Father Vince Lampert, who became my mentor. And we worked.
I've had him on the show a few times.
He was a great man. So he had he had tons of experience compared to me. So I would go to him, visit him at his rectory on St. Michael Drive, and spend some time with him. And then he would come into town occasionally and spend some time here. We would kind of book all of the heavy ministry into 1 week when he would be coming, so we could all, go through all these cases, maximize his time with us, basically. And that's what we did.
Yeah, that's super interesting. It actually kind of segues into the next question, which is, would you mind describing for us the most intense moment that you've experienced during an exorcism? Like, what was it like, and then how did it resolve?
Well, I mean, for me personally, I went to see a guy that was at a halfway house up near Kentucky, and really had no expectation that there would be a big problem at all. I just got a call from the person that was kind of running the halfway house. Said, "This guy's acting real strange, and he's creeping out a lot of the other guys here. Can you come talk to him?" So I went up and I met with him in a room, privately, and I just really just in the opening prayer, it wasn't even a prayer of deliverance, it was just, come Holy Spirit and, guide my thoughts and my actions and my ways according to your will. And with that, he just levitated right up off the couch. And I said, oh, okay, we're not gonna do this here. Because
I've actually, sorry to kind of cut you off, I've heard you give this story an account on other shows. I think it was on Michael Knowles' show. There was another one that I was watching on Catholic Talk, is the YouTube channel. And you've given this account a couple times, but I'd like to know, in what way was he? So he was sitting on the couch, and then he started to levitate. Was he still like in a sort of seating position, and then started, or what was going on?
imagine you had a rope tied to your belly button and was pulling you up off the ground, and your limbs are just flung backwards. It was like he was being pulled up through his core, and everything else was just flailing backwards.
Was he? But he was on the couch.
Well, he started on the couch.
He started on the couch, and then he kind of like got pulled forward.
No, up. He was up in the air with his limbs hanging.
Okay, so he was sitting down, and then he just started to levitate. How high up off of the couch did?
A couple of feet.
Okay. Sorry, I just wanted to get a little bit more detail on what the scene kind of looked like. But continue. Feel free to continue.
Well, I knew enough that we're not going to do an actual exorcism on his turf. So I just said, we're done here. And in the name of Jesus, I command you to stop. He fell back down on the couch. He came back. He was present to me, the person, the young man. And I said, we're going to have to do this at my church because, this isn't the right place to do this sort of thing. And so we scheduled the appointment, and he came down a few times, and we did a few sessions and of the actual rite. And I think after 2 or 3, he was fine.
Man, that is just wild. I'm sure people listening to this are like, there's no way that actually happened. As I was mentioning to you before this started, this Capturing Christianity, the whole YouTube channel is devoted to apologetics. So we have a lot of atheists and skeptics that watch, and I've been covering this topic. Actually, I can pull up a couple of chats that were sent in earlier. Sorry, this is from a different stream. There was a chat earlier asking, why is Cameron so obsessed with demon possession? So we've covered this topic a number of times. We haven't actually covered it that often relative to the topics that we've covered in general. I think we have like over 600 videos, and maybe less than 1% are devoted to this topic. So you may just see it pop up a lot, and that's why you might think that we cover it a lot, but we actually don't. But part of the reason why I'm discussing this is because of comments like this that I saw in the live chat. I was an atheist until I discovered the reality of evil forces operating in this world. And I think that with respect to demon possession and exorcisms, I think
that says a lot. I was an atheist until I discovered the reality of evil forces operating in this world. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and we're going to jump forward to first exorcism.
During one of these exorcisms, did something happen that it didn't go as planned? And then how did you manage that situation?
My very first exorcism, when I did the rite, was with a pastor who's a friend of mine. And he called me up and said, I've got this person here. It was a young woman from Mexico. And he said, she's definitely got demons. I don't know how bad. So I met with her. We did the whole interview and the spiritual intake questionnaire. And I said, I think she's possessed. So in America, the USCCB requires that before you do an exorcism, or the rite of exorcism, the person has to have a physical and a psychological. So we had to do those.
Hold on, chat. Let me see something. Because I just want to make sure I'm right. Okay, yeah. United States Conference of Catholic Bishops, because he said the USCCB.
They take time. Psychologicals have to be scheduled with, the doctor, and it's usually a week or 2 out, and then he has to evaluate the whole thing. It's a day-long thing. It's costly. It's about $2,000 to $3,000. So it's a big deal. And then finally, when you get in there, imagine it's my first time. So I'm literally going through the rite, by the book, exactly as it says to do, which you really should do anyway. And I'm seeing her, literally, her body is being bent in ways that you physically can't do as a person. And the pastor was getting very upset because he wasn't prepared for what he was seeing. And he was literally just like, he kept putting his head down. He couldn't even look at her. So when we finally get towards the end, and the end is when you're like giving gratitude to God for what he's done. And I'm like, clearly she is not well. This is not over. And I looked at the pastor and said, do you want me to continue or should we reschedule for a second session? She is literally dripping wet. She's sweating from the exertion her body's been through. And he looked at me and said, I can't do this again. You have to keep going. And I was naive enough to think, maybe, we'll just get rid of it today and we'll be done with it. I never even dreamed sometimes it could take 10, 12, 14 sessions. So I just went back in. Now, he had just had a huge, 8-foot painting of Guadalupe shipped to his church where he was going to hang it. This is in the back room. So we were away from the people in the church that they couldn't hear us. And he had that painting back there waiting to be hung. And I looked at that painting and I just looked at her and I said, cry out to your mother for help. And she looked at the painting and she spoke to Our Lady in Spanish and said basically that, please help me, mother. And with that, she went into violent convulsions and literally beating her body on the ground up and down. And I looked at the priest and he was like, I don't know what's happening. This doesn't look good to me. And after 5 minutes, it left and she was completely liberated. And I looked at my friend and I said, gosh, had we known, we could have started with that and saved us a lot of pain and suffering for her. But you just don't know. It's not a science and you don't know how things, especially your first time. I had no idea if I was doing this right, if this was just not working because of me. You just don't know. But that was the surprise. It was when she actually asked Our Lady for help is when the demon got delivered out of her.
Which I understand it seems like a pretty central part of it is if the person doesn't want to be free of it, then it may not go away, or it may stick around and be very difficult. So the person's will, I think, has to be aligned with the will of God. Does that sound right?
Yeah. I mean, yes. I mean, there's cases when it's a young person where sort of like baptism, the will of the parents is just as strong as the will of the child, and their will is enough. Sometimes these people have been living with these demons their whole life, and although they don't like what they do to them, there's a weird friendship they've developed with them because they've known them for so long. And part of them doesn't want to be alone because they feel like if this goes, then I have nothing.
Which is very interesting, right? But it makes sense. It makes sense. So that was the first exorcism. Exorcist fear. Let's go to exorcist fear.
I completely blacked out when I was ordering this, and I don't remember what I got. So this.
Has any of the things that you've experienced, has it ever scared you? I mean, I know that the other exorcists that I've talked with, and even psychologists and stuff, they say that at first it kind of shakes them and gets them well, what's going on? And then they realize that's really what the devil's after, what the demon is after, is that they're trying to elicit that fear. So basically you'll kind of back away and stop. But I imagine over time you kind of get desensitized to it. Is that sort of what happened to you as well?
Yes and no. You do get desensitized to it, which is kind of a bad thing. But they also get tired of the same tricks over and over. And if they know it's just me and the same team I always have, they're like, well, we've done this for them before. It's not a big deal. If I bring a new priest into the room, then all the tricks come out again. They're trying to impress. And if it's just the same old people that have seen everything before, it kind of dies down. The manifestations are limited. The pain they inflict on the person increases. And that's the hard part of being in the room during an exorcism.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Those people are, the physical person is suffering.
Yeah.
They're tormenting them, both emotionally and physically.
During one of these exorcisms, does something happen that
Yeah, that is That's some heavy stuff, I know. But because it kind of picked up from our live stream yesterday, because angels and demons were a topic, I wanted to go into that because I have watched that. Cameron actually did it about a year ago. And I watched that and I said this would be good to pair up with in case anybody ever wants to come back and look at Friday and Saturday's live stream and kind of see like how they're congruent with each other. All right, guys. So with that being said, I'm going to go enjoy the rest of my weekend with my wife. You guys enjoy your weekend. Be safe. We'll be back here on Monday. Monday we should be good because a lot of the packing at work is done. So I have more of normal days and not so much of a split schedule. So with that being said, guys, to Monday we should be on about I'm gonna say about 1600. All right, guys. So with that being said, enjoy the rest of your weekend. What I always say, love yourselves, love one another, take care of yourselves, take care of one another, be peaceful.